Another sandwich or anything, please help yourselves. We have plenty of sandwiches today, so don't be shy.
We're going
to go ahead and get started with community announcements. So if you have a community announcement, please raise your hand. I think that Rotary is going to have an event this Saturday.
The Mother Son Glow Dance, Saturday night, right here, 6 and 8, $25 for the mother and son, $5 each additional child. So that will be Saturday.
John?
Yeah, I have two things. Don't forget, we're still selling our book on the history of the county. We pushed the first book because it came out before Christmas. The second book will be here in about 6 weeks. And when that comes in, then we'll make a big deal of buying both at the same time. Most people are buying both volume 1 and 2. And those of you who already got volume 1, we want to get volume 2 in. And we'll announce it when it comes in. We're looking at the very first of April. And then also this Saturday, the Historical Society meetings at 2 o'clock, the archives building, and our presenters are 2 professional actors who dress up like grave robbers. Now, they don't call themselves grave robbers, they call themselves body snatchers. And they actually would dress up like people who actually may being up dead bodies and some of the average to hospitals or to doctors for teaching doctors. And they should be very entertaining because they come in dressed the part, and they talk the part, and it's just very down there before they're very entertaining. But it's 2 o'clock, the archives building, and hope you can make it.
Okay. Do we have any other community announcements? If not, you will notice on your table there is a flyer, an information sheet. The Chamber of Commerce is doing our first ever official city/business guide. It will look like this, a 32-page, nice, heavy cardstock weight publication. It has 4 to 5 stories, histories, schools, lifestyle sort of articles, and then we will be selling ads. And if you're a chamber member, you will be in the business directory. If you are not, you still have time to join the chamber and get in the directory. If you're not a chamber member, you will not get in the directory. The ad rates are very reasonable. We'll be around in a couple weeks to start that. But the flyer on your table explains that we decided to do the front and back cover instead of ads. We're doing a photo contest. So the front cover is a photo contest for professional photographers only, which just means that you have sold photos for money. Okay. The back cover is for amateurs only. We take up to 4 entries per person, and the entry fee is $10 a piece for each photo. The price for the front cover is $200, and the back cover is $100. And we decided to do this because if you have ever met anyone who doesn't live in Trousdale County but drives through here frequently, the first thing they say is, "Oh, I know Trousdale County. It's the most beautiful place on my drive." So what better way to advertise ourselves than to show us off? Okay? So I hope you'll share those. If you're not a photographer yourself, share them with someone who is. We would like to have some great pictures. The photo contest runs till the 1st of June. They'll be professionally judged for the winners. We hope to have it to the printer the 1st of July so that we have it back by the 1st of September, the publication. It will be free to everyone. If you're an advertiser, obviously you'll get some. It'll be in the gas stations, the administration buildings, the banks. Just a great way to promote Hartsville and Trousdale County. Okay? The other thing that the Chamber is trying, we've started a quarterly women's program, and it meets tomorrow here at noon. It's called Women in the Lead. It's a program for women only. We have a really nice luncheon, a little door prize, and we're just talking about topics as they pertain to women. So finance from a women's point of view, heart attacks from a woman's point of view. Tomorrow we're talking about finance and asset management for women, and our speaker is Tracy Belcher from Citizens Bank. So that's my current state of imminent disasters. So we're going to move on, and we'll have Mayor Chamber to come begin his State of the County address. Just so I see.
That's right, I'll hold it.
All right.
I'm short, but I'm not that short. First of all, I want to thank the Chamber for hosting the State of the County address and inviting me here today to give this. And I also want to, before I get too in-depth in this, go ahead and acknowledge the victims of the recent tornadoes and just compliment the citizens of Trousdale County, and most specifically Foodland and Mark Presley and the staff at Carey Family Practice and Pediatrics, as well as Bobby and Amanda Livingston, for all they did to raise donations and for the victims of the tornadoes and the citizens of Trousdale County. I know I've talked to Mark Presley a couple of times, and last time I talked to him, he was on about trailer number 4 load of goods going to various counties that have been affected, so I want to go ahead and acknowledge that. Every time you think about the State of the County address, at least I do, one of the things you want to think about is, okay, well, what exactly is the State of the County? And I think I said the same thing last year. It's probably going to be the same thing for the next few years. The State of the County is its transition, and that's just what we are dealing with, it being this close to the major metropolitan area, or one that is now going to be a major metropolitan area of Nashville. We are going to be looking at a lot of change and a lot of transition as we go. If anyone's driven on 231 or anything on the west side of the county knows we're experiencing a lot of growth, particularly on that side of the county, but it's also in what used to be the Trousdale or the Hartsville city limits in the urban services district, and on the east side of the county we're getting some there too. So we're getting a lot of development in the county. Along with that comes a lot of issues you're going to have to deal with. Some of them I'm going to address later on, but one of the things I'm going to start out talking about with is, given the recent tornadoes, looking at emergency preparedness. One of the things that, as I got thinking about it, even though thankfully we were not struck by the tornado, it does bring to mind about preparedness, and it's particularly one of the areas we need assistance in, and we need to start developing more, is volunteers that would come out and assist if there is anything done. Right now, when we were going through our planning for any kind of infectious disease, the plan calls for 52 volunteers, and at the time we had 9. So we need to really work on growing that volunteer base. Another area that's popped up in is that if we had, let's say, a flooding, which is our biggest natural disaster we experience in Trousdale County, some people may be displaced, and we need volunteers, whether it's a church or other civic organizations, that would be willing to house them on a temporary basis and coordinate with other communities. That's kind of what's done overall. Just I think it's almost last weekend, that I got a call from, my wife got a call from someone who was trying to find some people a temporary overnight shelter. I ended up getting in contact with someone in Wilson County, and so they had to go to another county because they have nothing available right now. If something like that comes up, our residents have to go somewhere else. So that's something I want to try working on in coordination with a homelessness task force we've got. I called one in October. We had a meeting. I think it's a very good meeting. We do need to work going forward on trying to develop something more concrete as far as how we're going to be structured and what groups are going to do what inside the county. I think that would be, if we do have another natural disaster, along with just our normal homelessness that happens, or somebody that may, for whatever reason, have to vacate their home, whether it's a national disaster or something else happens, having that already in place will be a big benefit to the residents of Trousdale County. I want to go and talk about the status of some current projects, and the first one, is, I'm sure as everybody knows, is the streetscape project out here, and that's kind of the one I get the most questions about. And the purpose of the streetscape is to replace the sidewalks in the downtown area, and also going to be a beautification of the downtown area. This is a project that was started under the previous administration on Mary Carmen in about 2016, and what you're seeing now is obviously the culmination of that project. It's not just the sidewalks, they've also had to replace the sewer lines where they've had those out. I believe those sewer lines in those areas have been in the ground since either 1960 or 1961. So they're taking the opportunity while the sidewalks are out to go ahead and replace the water and sewer lines in there, improve service to that area. And also it is improving the storm drainage and the storm management system in that area downtown. So that should be improved after this project's completed. And the current completion date is scheduled for around April 15th. That may be extended if we keep experiencing this kind of weather. That may be, like I said, may be extended, but at this time they are still projected to hit the April 5th completion date. Another project that's been kind of extended because of the weather is our landfill remediation project. If anyone doesn't know, we have actually 2 landfills here in Trousdale County. The one we were having experiences or problems with was closed in about 1984. What happened is trees had grown on the cap itself, and that had allowed water to seep into the waste and come out through the rock strata down the hill, and it was actually starting to put some contaminants into a stream nearby. And so obviously the State Department of Environment Conservation wanted that fixed as soon as possible. We did go through the process. We were fortunate enough to get a grant through the state that's going to help pay some of the cost or part of the cost, half the cost of that project. It was originally estimated to be $644,000, of which the state was going to reimburse us up to $322,216. However, once we actually got the engineering firm to give us a plan and got that bid out, it actually came to bid, the contract was $473,000. So hopefully that's going to be a lot of savings on what we initially anticipated, and as well as the grant's going to help cover some of that. So hopefully, instead of looking at the initial $644,000, what was going to be all the responsibility of the county, that's going to be drastically less. And that project, as I said, it has unfortunately been extended due to the weather. The actual biggest problem has been access to the site through the access road, because the landfill happens to be in one part of Trousdale County where if you go 6 inches under the soil, there's just more soil and not rock. So what had happened is the weather and the heavy equipment had actually rutted out the road. There were roots 2 to 3 feet deep in there. And so at the advice of the Tennessee Department of Environment Conservation, the contractor did leave the site to give that time to dry out. Once we get some good weather, once we have some consistently good weather, they're going to come back and finish off the project. The state did extend our time frame to complete that project to May 31st, and so there should be no issue there. That should be more than dried out by that time. And I've been told once they go back to the site, they really only have about 1 week's worth of work, and that should be done. And that's just finishing up some of the riprap and the drainage ditches and the access road. Everything else, the actual remediation for the caps is already in place and seems to be holding up very well. Another thing that was recently completed was a park master plan process. That was done with Kimley Horn, who had also done the landscaping and some of the engineering services on the streetscape project. That involved a survey, online survey, and also some formed public surveys taken by the public. And also had an open house that was scheduled on November 12th. The public came in and gave their feedback. The online survey actually had over 500 responses, which they said is actually the most responses they've ever had on the project, and they thought that was kind of unusual given that it had the most responses from the smallest county they've dealt with. But that just shows you how big an issue this was to the citizens of Trousdale County. And as I was campaigning, that's one of the things I heard is people wanted to make improvements to the park. Now, the plan, I'll be honest with you, if you look at the bottom line, price tag is over $11 million, and I know a lot of people are worried about where we're going to get that money. Well, I think what we need to keep in mind is that this is a plan that even if we do all of it, is probably going to take a couple decades. It's not something that's going to be done overnight. It's going to have to be done in phases. Some of the biggest projects, I think there was a recommendation for looking at a recreation center. Obviously, I think if you get to that, that's going to be one of the last steps in the process, and that's probably going to be closer to 15 to 20 years out from now. So even though we do have a plan going forward, and we intend to use that plan to apply for grants, both through state grants or federal grants, but most importantly through private organizations such as Blue Cross Blue Shield has an activity grant. There's other private organizations out there that have grants that will come in and help you do improvements in park. And also, there's been some local civic groups that have offered to make donations to help get the park developed and get it to where it's more accessible to the public and has more amenities for the public that wants to go out and enjoy our public open spaces. And now I'd like to go on and move into future projects. And as I said, with all the growth we're experiencing, one of the things we're going to have to start looking at, and I'm sure some of it has been looked at, is our transportation options, specifically whether the capacity of our roads is going to handle the projected increase. Last projection I had from the Greater National Regional Council saying by the year 2023, we were supposed to have another 400 to 500 residents in Trousdale County. But if you get that many residents, you can expect to have maybe at least half that many cars, so that's another 200 cars. and especially on the west end of the county, of that 231 corridor, and especially the 225 and 231 intersection. I think there's going to need to be something looked at there to improve that intersection. And that's obviously at this point, this is just at the very beginning of that stages, but I do think going forward, working with TDOT and our rural planning organization, we need to start looking at what our transportation improvements need to be in the future to handle that growth going forward. Another thing that's been necessitated by growth, and it's been a lot of topic of conversation recently, has been the prospect of a new jail. While our current jail was built in the 1950s, it was expanded and renovated in the 1990s. However, at that time, one of the things that was not thought about was the increase in the female population, which when that expansion was done, there were 0 beds for the female population. And right now, it's not unusual for our jail to have between 12 to 16 female inmates. Well, that's 233% over capacity, and there was a 4-month period there when we were 233% over capacity on our female inmates. There's also been an increase in the male population, and a lot of that's been driven by pretrial incarceration, whether it's felony or some of the misdemeanors before they plead are also staying in jail a little bit longer. And obviously one of the big drivers of that has been drug charges. And that's something that's really been not just in Tennessee looked at by Governor Lee and his administration and here in the county, but also across the United States, is trying to see what is driving these increases in the jail populations, what can be done on the local level to try to address that. And as we look at this new jail, I think some of the things we need to look at are reentry programs for inmates to try to make sure we get them some kind of training or work with them inside so that when they're released, we do not see that consistent high recidivism rates that some other communities are experiencing. We also want to look at a work release program which would work with inmates that are there, whether it's through with an employer, so if they can get out during the day, work a job, they can earn a wage that will go into an account that will help pay off any fines and fees they have, any back child support, work with them to try to get a driver's license or anything like that. So when they're released, they have a better chance of going out and being more productive in society instead of getting into a recurring cycle where they're released, they don't have a job because they've got criminal charges, and now they just come right back into the system, whether it's failure to pay their court fees and fines or anything like that. Some of the other communities that have done this, particularly, I don't remember if it's Gibson or Dyer County, has put these programs in place. And of the participants in the program, they went from a 60% recidivism rate down to a 6% recidivism rate. So if you see that kind of decrease in your jail population, not only are you saving costs from incarcerating that person, they're also out there contributing to society. They're actually able to support their families and not be a drain on the system or taking up taxpayer dollars by us housing them in the local jail. Another thing that's been kind of a consequence of our growth and the increased rooftops we have in the county is increased flooding in areas where we didn't see it before. And one of the things when we did our local emergency planning preparedness, updating our plan, as I said, the #1 natural disaster, #1 issue was flooding. I've spoken to our emergency management director. One of the things we're looking at as we go forward is a flooding mitigation effort, working with the state and other organizations, trying to see what are those areas where maybe we can address some of the flooding and see what we can do to help the citizens and residents in that area. Not only is the streetscape beautification project to try to repair some of the sidewalks in downtown that have been starting to crumble, also it can be seen as an economic development project, specifically with the downtown revitalization. One of the big things that is a kind of economic development project now, it's all over the country, not just in Tennessee, is revitalization of your downtowns, particularly when you get to the younger people. They like that more feel of the downtown. And I've been to some recent trainings and looking at what they want you to do in your downtown areas. It's basically like going back to the 1930s and 40s. You would have your commercial spaces on the bottom floor and then some kind of residential or apartments or something like that on the upper floor. Like I said, a lot of the younger folks, they like being able to convenience to come down and then go to a restaurant or a coffee shop or something like that. And so that's one of the things we're looking at, is starting an effort to try to do downtown revitalization. We did submit an application for the Tennessee Department of Economic Community Development's Downtown Revitalization Program. This is specifically for rural downtowns. It is modeled on what it is for more urban downtowns, which is called Main Street. This is just an application for rural areas. However, this is a competitive program, so we may not be chosen, but even if we are not chosen, I still see areas we can go forward in this to try to improve the downtown and try to work with the property owners to try to get that done. This is not something that I'm saying we're going to go out and the county's going to give people money, because that's not going to happen. But there are ways we could try to work to incentivize them to revitalize their buildings, and also collecting this information on the buildings, whether it's size, spacing, is it available for lease, is it available for purchase, and then trying to use that to maybe market the downtown area to anyone that's looking, whether they're looking for office space or they're looking to buy a building as an investment. That's going to be valuable information to collect as we go forward. Another thing we're doing is working with various organizations such as Greater Nashville Regional Council, Tennessee Central Economic Authority, Tennessee Department of Economic Community Development, and TVA Economic Development, and of all states, audio-visual program is creating a workforce development marketing video that will highlight the resources we have in the county. That'd be our award-winning school system, their CTE program, the TCATS, mechatronics program, and other programs they have, as well as space that's available in industrial parks, and also demographic information, and a part of the video showing off the beauty of Trousdale County and what we have here to offer anyone looking to either start a business or locate a business. And we're at the very beginning of that process. We do hope to have a video ready that could be not only on the county's website and YouTube channel, but also included when Tennessee Central or the state or anyone that markets Trousdale County to a prospect coming in. We hope to have that completed sometime either in the middle this summer or late this summer. And again, as I said, they'll be working with Volunteer State Community College and their audio-visual program, so there really should be no additional expense to the county. And it gets those students that experience to go forward and really pad the resume on that. One of the areas as we had our asset-based planning with the Tennessee Department of Economic and Community Development was basically be a tourism effort, revitalizing Taylor's Landing, trying to take advantage of the resource we have, which is the Cumberland River, and I don't think we've taken advantage of it to our full benefit at this point. I have had a meeting with U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. They said they don't have any funds to develop that. Kind of what they've done in the past is they would lease that property out to a county, and then the county could go and either coordinate efforts with local volunteers, such as you could have a group that, let's call it Friends of Taylor's Landing, that could go out there and help with trail revitalization. There are not only grants through government agencies, but also private organizations out there that will give grants for maybe trail enhancements or those kind of things. We also need to look at expanding the parking out in Taylor's Landing, because if you get someone out there that launches 2 or 3 boats, well then there's nowhere to park. And hopefully we can increase the parking there and access to that park. I think it would also be a good launch area for people that like canoeing or kayaking. I think we also need to look at maybe taking advantage of the fact that we have a world record walleye was caught here in Trousdale County by Mr. Mabry Harper. One of the things I would like to see someone do is maybe plan a Mabry Harper Memorial Fishing Tournament. Maybe you could have it broke down where you have, bass is one category and walleye is another category. However, I do think there are a lot of ideas out there that I've heard other people have that could really bring people into the county and give people in the county something to do, recreation opportunities. One of the next phases we're looking at is trying to develop more retail here in the county. One of the things you hear is, well, we don't have anywhere really to buy new furniture. You can't buy a baseball glove for your little leaguer here. And so one of the things we're looking to do is try to entice retail to come here. Now, I will admit that is an uphill climb. One of the things that does bode well for us is the increase in population and we've got coming here and the growth we have here. I think we're just on the verge of being able to have some of these things. However, we've got to get our information and everything together so that we can go out and market Trousdale County. And all these things are not just pieces that's individual lying out here. All of these are parts of one greater whole. You've got to have all these pieces together to make your community more attractive, not only to people looking to move here and live here, but also put a business here or start a business here. And in that retail development strategy, we have attended a retail academy through the State Department of Economic and Community Development. It was very eye-opening, the level and the depth of information they could get on people and what companies are looking for as far as how varied it is. I mean, you got Little Caesars will look at one set of information versus, let's say, a clothing store that looks at a completely different set of information. So that's been very eye-opening. That's something I want to focus on as we go forward, because we have to develop more commercial and industrial spaces, because right now we are very heavily dependent on the residential property taxes. And as you know, if you get more retail come in, you not only get the property taxes from that, you also get increased sales taxes. But more importantly, you get places where people can go and eat, they can shop, they can spend time with their family. And hopefully if we can get some of these things, we can get this 61% of our citizens or residents that are driving outside the county to work somewhere else. They can actually stay inside the county, spend more time with their family, have less expenses, wear and tear on their vehicle, and just have a better quality of life. Because even though as great as Nashville is as an entertainment hub, I have yet to talk to anyone within the last few months who really enjoys driving in downtown Nashville. But they love being out here in Trousdale County, where you still got all the trees, and it's more, I hate to say Mayberry, but that's what people keep bringing up, it's more Mayberry-like. So we really want to take advantage of that and really show people what Trousdale County is and what Hartsville is, and how welcoming an environment we are, and what is available here for them and their families. Another thing we're working on is the launch of a new county website, and we currently have that scheduled to launch on Monday, March 16th. So this coming Monday, that new website should go online. It will provide more information to the public. It'll be much more user-friendly. We are still working on that. I will tell you, it is going to be a work in progress. That website will never really be completed. It'll always be in a state of change with new information coming up. It'll have a calendar on there so people can see not only community events that are coming up, but also committee meetings, county commission meetings, boards and committees, those kind of things. We will also have access to the agendas, minutes, packets given out to the county commissioners. We are also establishing, or have established, and we're trying to get it completely built out, a YouTube channel for the county, to where all those county commission meetings, committee meetings, boards and commissions that I've been recording will be linked from that page, or you can go directly to that YouTube channel where you can look at the playlist and pick out which committee meeting, whatever you want to watch. One of the last things I want to talk about is our water department. A lot of people think the water department is funded by taxes. It is not. It is completely dependent upon revenue it generates. So none of your tax money goes to support the water department. But I will say we have three major projects that the water department is looking at. The first one is developing what is called a SCADA system. What this is a system that will use radio towers to basically read water meters. And right now we have a grant through the state, through a community development block grant, that will allow us to put these master zone meters out into different areas of the county. What the benefit of that is these areas where we are having water loss, we can see exactly which line it's coming off of, and then try to focus more on that to rectify that water loss, because every gallon of water that goes into the ground costs the water department, and ultimately it costs the ratepayers. So right now it varies from the time of year and month, but it's been bouncing back and forth between 35 and 40% water loss, and that's not just some abstract number. There's dollar signs attached to that, because it costs the water department for every gallon of water to treat that and get that prepared. So as we do that, that will also take pressure off rate increases in the future, because we have a much more efficient water department. We also are looking at a new 2 million gallon water tank to replace the towers over what's called Grover's Tower. It's the one behind Minute Mart, and also one on Morrison Street. Both of those towers were found to have deficiencies by the Tennessee Department of Environment Conservation, and a corrective action plan was required. We looked at different options. Given that those towers are 30 to 40 years old, the cost of rehabbing those towers was only a couple $100,000 more than building a new 2 million gallon water tank. That, by the placement of the area we're looking to put at, should help the flow in the city and also increase water pressure and equalize that throughout the system. One of the things that was done in the past is that the water towers are at different heights. So you would have the pressure from one tower pushing against the pressure from another tower, and you would have decrease in water pressure for certain people in your service area. This should address that, as well as give us a new tower that will reduce maintenance costs and last much longer into the future than it would have been rehabilitating those existing towers. And one of the last things we're working on, and this is not the most glorious thing, it's more internal work, is trying to update the county's policies and codes. Some of these codes were from the 1975, some of them have been out of date or been superseded by state statute, yet they're still in the code. The first 3 sections of the code talk about how the town of Hartsville operates, and that has not been an official government entity since January 1st, 2001. So we're trying to update those, and now as we go through those, it'll hopefully clear that up. And another thing that will be, those codes will be available when the website goes online. This will be the first time that all the Hartsville, it's called Hartsville Municipal Code right now, will be available to the public to go in and look at. And so if you want to know what ordinances we have that regulate whatever local issues you have, those will all be available online, as well as all the zoning ordinances will be collected there as well. They've been online, however, they will all now be included in the section of the code where they would have been found to begin with. As I said, those last 2 things are not the most eye-catching thing, but however, those are issues that need to be addressed to make sure that we have as most up-to-date codes and we're meeting all of the state and federal requirements we're supposed to. So as I said, as you can see, the Trousdale County is in a state of transition. However, I do think we have a very bright future ahead of us. It's just we've got to go ahead and start getting these plans in place to make sure that, you know, whatever development we have, we are prepared for as we go forward. And I think all the citizens, with your participation, everybody that's contacted me wanting to serve on boards or committees or wanting more information, I thank everybody for all their interest in it. And hopefully as we go forward, we can get more people involved and just grow Trousdale County, and then we can all be very proud of where we're from. So thank you very much.
Several people asked me if they're going to move the power line back half a block or not. It wasn't one of the plans that we had for streetscape to move the power lines back off the street. Is that going to happen or not? Okay.
Well, the question was, are the power lines going to be moved back off of Main Street? And the answer to that is no, they are not. And one of the reasons why they originally looked at having those put underground. However, for Tri-County to move their power lines underground would have cost about $1 million, and that would have been a cost that the county would have had to pay. And
right.
Also, when AT&T was looking at relocating their lines, it hit about about $400,000 to $500,000, and they just stopped calculating it because they estimated it would have probably been another $800,000 to move those, and that also would have had to been borne by, that cost would have been borne by the county. However, so when it all came down to it, the money for the streetscape project is only going to cover replacing the sidewalks and the improvements you're going to see. It will not change the location of the power lines. Yes, ma'am.
Is there a proposed project for replacing all the bricks that have been taken up?
Right now, we've just got some suggestions. One of the things I suggest we look at is the flagpole on top of the courthouse is starting to deteriorate given its age. Maybe using the bricks to build a new flagpole stand out in front of the courthouse, or other projects that the public may come up with. Once that project gets completed, I do anticipate taking that, whether it's Parks and Recreation or whatever committee that needs to be, to get input from the community to see what they want to use the bricks for. But there will be some use of those bricks. They're not just going to be stored up and never seen again. We will find some way to use those bricks.
You have an idea how many have been displaced?
I believe it's somewhere around 60. Now that's just counting the monogrammed bricks. That's not counting the regular bricks. So the regular bricks, I don't know, we didn't count those because we made sure we specifically got and saved the monogram bricks. So outside of that, I don't know what that number is. Yes, sir.
You said there were 3 projects the water department listed: the water tank and the remotely read the meters. What's the third one?
It's a replacement of the sewer lines. I'm sorry, I might have skipped that one. Also looking at, one of the things that's come up as I came into office and started learning more about the operation of the water department is what's called infiltration and inflow. And what that is rainwater that infiltrates into your sewer system, whether it's the roots growing into the line or the joints no longer sealing or manholes that are leaking. In 2017, which was the last study that was done on it by Tennessee Department of Environment Conservation, at that time the amount of I&I coming into our system was 58% of the flow through the sewage treatment plant, which was accounted for at that time over $150,000 in annual cost to treat that amount. So if we can get that addressed, that will drastically improve the efficiency of the plant and also, again, reduce burden of the pressure to increase rates on the ratepayers. As I said, that's one of the things we were looking at. Once you hit 60%, the state requires you to do something, and the last study was 58%. The water department did buy a camera that we can use to go through and camera those systems and see where we can find those issues and actually GPS that coordinate, so then go back and dig right straight down to it and see if it's going to require just a spot improvement or if it's entire line. So we are looking to see which lines have the most I&I issues and try to work on that as we go forward. But again, just like when you get into any major infrastructure, that is going to be a multi-year project. However, we are at the beginning of trying to address those issues as we go forward. And I think if we can drastically reduce this I&I, not only does that decrease the burden to try to raise the rates on the ratepayers, but also it will also give us back some capacity to give us more. I'm trying to think exactly how to phrase this. Right now, one of the issues is if we have a major plant come in, there's a prospect we may not have the sewage capacity to treat that. But if we can get this I&I issue down, we'll get almost 58% of capacity back on your plant. So that will give us much more flow and things we can address going forward. Yes, sir.
One thing that's caught my eye as much as anything is right out this front door. When you come on Main Street with the four-way stop, they have really cut out in the road. Is that what the curb's gonna be?
It's not going to be exactly where that cut is out, but it will be in that area. There's actually anything over a 43-foot trailer is not going to be able to make that turn going forward. So if you have a tractor trailer truck that's 53 feet long or something, you're probably not going to be able to make that turn. So, but one of the reasons why it is that way is because there's going to be an ADA ramp there. And since you have such a fall from where the door to the Hartsville Taco Company is down to the street, you have to have 1 inch fall for every 1 foot of travel. So if you take that amount of fall and put that in a handicap or an ADA ramp, it requires it to be extended out very far. And so unfortunately, just given the lay of the land, it's going to require a longer ramp in that area.
I was coming down River Street and out to the lake, and there was a truck with a gooseneck trailer behind it, and I could just look at his face. What am I gonna do?
So are they gonna detour those 53-foot trucks before they even come into town? Because people, well, trust me, we live out by the West Borland 141, and you see those guys, their GPS, if they don't know the road, tells them to use 141, and by the time they get to the bottom, they're just like, so I mean.
Yes, there'll probably be a detour down Church Street or some kind of, we talked to T-Dot about maybe trying to get a sign at the end of 141 in Lebanon telling them, there's this construction up here. However, there's also construction on 2 bridges on 231. So they're diverting them up 141 to keep them off 231, but we have construction here as well. So it's probably going to be a diversion down Church Street. But I'm hoping in the future we'll have a 141 project come through at least in a few years and try to take that tractor trailer burden off the downtown area. Is there any other questions?
You touched on the jail a little bit, but
Yes.
you didn't really talk about, we talked about the growth and being over capacity and what we're looking at on that, timeline wise. One reason we're trying to get out in front of that issue is if we started construction on a jail today, it would be 3 years to 4 years before we would have anybody in it. So we really have to get out in front of that issue. And I applaud the mayor and the commissioners and the sheriff for recognizing the need that we need to be working in that direction. A lot of these things you think is premature when you hear about them, but because of the timelines involved, we have to get out in front of them.
So any other questions? All right, well, thank you all very much. The sheriff has a question.
You can tell them about our new radio tower we got up,
Is that on the Morrison Street Tower?
and the Pumpkin Branch side.
Yeah, the sheriff's department and 911 have been working to replace some of the older towers to make sure we have the most up-to-date technology. So they've replaced the communications tower on Morrison Street, and we've also got communications equipment going on the Pumpkin Branch Tower that was completed, I guess, 3 or 4 years ago, something like that. It had not had the communications equipment on it. So that's going to expand the coverage area for the sheriff's department, hopefully allow them to get radio service in some of the areas of the county where there was dead spots right now. So hopefully that'll be a good thing going forward. And we also do have, not only from the sheriff's department side, but also we do have some some of the cellular providers are looking to build additional towers in Trousdale County, so hopefully that'll expand some of the cellular coverage into the county as we go forward. Again, I think that's all just based on the amount of growth we've had. You're seeing these kind of things move in. And as I said, they say retail follows rooftops, but I think all these other things are going to follow the rooftops also. So I think that's why we need to get, as I said earlier, try to get all that information in place to show anybody looking at Trousdale County how we do have what they're looking for as far as locating here or moving here or even, like I said, starting a business here. So. Yes, sir.
Let everybody know too that 911 funds paid for all this upgrade is over $500,000. So it wouldn't even cost any taxpayer money in this project.
Yes, sir. On your phone bills, you pay a 911 charge, and that gets divvied up throughout the counties, throughout the state. That goes to the 911 board, and the 911 board had accumulated enough money to try to replace equipment, and that's where the towers and the communications equipment on the Pumpkin Branch Tower is being paid for out of that. So that doesn't come out of your property taxes or anything like that. That specifically came out of that 911 surcharge on your phone bills. All right, well, thank you all very much. Have a good day.
Thank you to Mayor Chambers. There's a lot going on in the county. We appreciate it. He needs to get going. He has another meeting. So there are a couple things